love recording myself. I seriously just spent the last 20 minutes making what I thought was a wonderful video and just deleted it. So here we go again. You will notice all of the work is done. So what I will be doing is revealing it as I go along. My apologies. I'm no more thrilled than you are. You might actually be more thrilled than I because it'll go a bit faster. So the first thing that I want you to do is to write down these problems. 1/2 plus 1/6. Oh, and I want this in your spiral journal. 1/2 plus 2/6. 1/2 plus 3/6. And 1/2 plus 4/6. You're going to practice adding and getting common denominators. Just remember a couple of things. You must have the same size pieces. None of these pieces are the same size to start with. It only takes 2 to make a whole item. These pieces, it takes 6 to make a whole item. So how do you get the same size pieces? Well, it's the bottom number that tells you the size of the pieces. First thing you ask yourself is, can I turn the smaller one into the larger one by multiplying? If you can, you do the top number, multiply that as well. Can I turn a 2 into a 6 by multiplying? Yes, I can. 2 times 3 gets me to 6. Whatever I did to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. Thus, the new fraction that is being added here is 4/6 plus the 1/6 that was already there. I would like you to get the rest of these as common denominators. Pause the video. I am going to have you resume the video, and here we go. Here is what I ended up with when I changed 1/2, multiply top and bottom times 3 so that I have 6ths, 3/6 plus 2/6. Here my 1/2, multiply top and bottom times 3 to turn it into 6ths. Still 3/6, but now I add it to 3/6. Then multiply top and bottom times 3, 1/2 turns into 3/6 plus 4/6. Once you have the pieces the same size, you're going to keep the pieces the same size and just add how many of those there are. So now what I want you to do is add these fractions now that the pieces are the same size, and look at the answer to your addition. If you need to simplify to get a final answer. Pause your video, get those answers. And here we go, resume it. The answers are going to turn out to look like this. 3/6 plus 1/6, that's 4/6. They're both even. I can divide top and bottom by 2, so in simplest form, my final answer is 2/3. 3 out of 6 pieces plus 2 out of 6 pieces, that means I have 5 out of the 6 pieces to make it a whole thing. That is in simplest form because 5 is 1 less than 6. When I took 3/6 and added 3 more 6ths, hopefully you might have recognized back here that you were taking half and adding half. 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole. First though, it turns out looking like 6/6. You could divide top and bottom by 2, or you could just immediately recognize 6 out of 6 means I have the whole thing. Now, if you think this was 1/2 plus 3/6, the next one it was 1/2 plus 1 more 6th, so I should have more than 1 whole thing. Indeed, when I got the common denominators, 3/6 plus 4/6, 3 and 4 make 7. The size of the pieces is still 6ths. It only takes 6 of them to make a thing. When the top number is larger than the bottom, that means you have whole amounts and a fraction left over. Take your 6/6 out, make a whole thing. You have 1/6 left over. The next problems that you are going to need to write down. It's all going to be 1/2. Let me do it this way. You need to give yourself 4 sections. You'll start again with 1/2. This time you are adding sevenths. 1/2 plus 2/7, 1/2 plus 3/7, and 1/2 plus 4/7. Now, once those are copied, your first step, are the size of the pieces the same? No, they are not. The bottom numbers are different. So what do you do to get the same size pieces? Well, can I turn a 2 into a 7 by multiplying? Nope. So then you have to work at both fractions, and the quickest way to get a common denominator, the same number on the bottom, is to multiply times the other denominator. So I'm going to have to multiply my 1/2 times 7, and whatever's on the bottom, have to do the same thing to the top. What about 1/7? I must multiply that, top and bottom, times the other denominator, times a 2. What do I do here? 2 times nothing equals 7. So the quickest way is to take the 7 and multiply 1/2 times 7 times the 1 and 7 times the 2. What about the 2/7? Use the other denominator. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Here, 1/2s and 7ths. Multiply your top and bottom times the other denominator. Here, the other denominator was the 2, so we multiply top and bottom times the 2. What's the other denominator if I'm on 1/2? It's the 7, so multiply the top and bottom times the 7. What's the other denominator here? It's the 2. Multiply top and bottom times the 2. Now, most often you just want to work with one problem at a time, but I wanted to show you that. Your next job is to get all of the fractions that have common denominators, add them, and simplify. Pause the video at this point and complete all of the work for these 4 problems. And here's what it looks like. So 1/2 turns into 7/14 plus 1/7 becomes 2/14. 7 plus 2 gets 9. The size of the pieces, once they're the same, they don't change unless once you've added them, there's a common factor. There is not. 9/14 is your final answer. All right. We have 7/14 again instead of 1/2. Here we now have 4/14. 7 plus 4 is 11. The size of the pieces, once it's the same, it stays the same. There is no common factor, and the top is smaller than the bottom. 7/14 again, plus, now it's 6/14. 7 plus 6 is 13. Size of the pieces stays the same. 1/2 becomes 7 out of 14. 4/7 becomes 8 out of 14. 7 plus 8 is 15. Size of the pieces stays the same. Here, however, simplest form, the 15 was larger than the 14, even though they don't have a common factor. I need to take out 14/14 to make up my 1 whole. I have 1 more 14th. This is the final answer. Your homework today, then, is 2 parts to it. One part, this is what you will do second, as soon as I find where I buried it here. Oh, here's what I did with it. This is one part of your homework. Yesterday you investigated 2/4. Today you are going to investigate 3/4. There are a couple of changes to this sheet. First of all, I only want you to show 3/4 in 3 different ways on these clocks. Don't forget how many minutes in 1 out of 4 parts to an hour, how many minutes in 3 out of 4 parts to an hour. For your number line, I want you to show 3/4 in 4 different places. We talked about how to show 1/4. We talked about how to show 2/4. Now you need to show 3/4 You only need 4 different places, but you must start here. So you show your first fourth, however much it takes, then your second fourth. Maybe you have a little overlap, maybe your third fourth. And no, I am not necessarily showing you fourth-sized pieces, so be careful with that. And don't forget, you don't just want 1/4 each time, you want 3/4 in each section that you're showing. What does 3/4 mean? Write an example of 3/4 with food. Yes, you need to label what does the 3 mean, what does the 4 mean. Yes, you need to change 3 divided by 4 into a decimal amount as well. When you show equivalent fractions for 3/4, I'm wanting you to start using the mathematics now. So if you start with 3/4, what are you multiplying your 3 and your 4 by? Must be the same number to get the equivalent fraction. So start with 3/4, but multiply top and bottom times the same number to get a fraction that is equivalent to 3/4. Another way of showing 3/4. And again, multiply your top and bottom times the same number to get an equivalent fraction, a different number of pieces, but still taking 3/4 of them. The chart. I want you to copy down what is in red. I'll zoom in even a bit here for you. So your x, it will be easier if you make your x's factors of 4. Why? Well, see, if y is going to be 3/4 of x, the only way to make that happen, you start with your x number and divide it into fourths. So 4 times is 8. That's why I started with 8. So if my x number is 8, I divide 8 into 4 equal sections. That means there must be 2 in each section. That's the only number times 4 that will give me my 8. So having 2 in each of those 4 sections tells me how much is in 1/4, but I don't just want 1/4, I want 1/4 and 1 more fourth and a 3rd fourth. How many total are in those 3/4? 2, 4, 6. So I take my 8, divide it among 4, that gets me to 2. And I take 3 of those 2's, which will equal 6. Another one to do, well, let's see, let's do 20. So if I take 20 and divide it among 4, 20 divided by 4, how many are going to go in each section? 5, 10, 15, 20. Of those 4 sections, I want 3. So 20 divided by 4 was 5. I take that 5 3 times. That would be 15. You need to write a real world problem. Go back and look on the other ones where we worked with converting measurements with 1/4 and 2/4. See what you can come up with for 3/4. I'll spend a bit of time explaining why this one is crossed out. It gets a little tricky now. What I did is I started and said, okay, same idea. If I want 3/4, I need to start with an amount that's divisible by 4. So I made my perimeter of number 2 12 units. Then that meant each side, I just made each one of them 3. I could have had 2 and 2 and 4 and 4. That would have been fine. But now what I needed to do, as long as my 4 sides added up to 12, to get to the perimeter of the other one, it has to be 3/4. Well, I take my 12, divide it into 4 sections, take 3 of those sections, 3, 6, 9. My perimeter had to add up to 9 units. That got a little bit tricky. So I said, well, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, that would only get me to 4. So 2 plus 2 plus 2, that got me closer. That was 8. but I needed one more unit, so I made each of these 2 and one more fourth. When I added these 4 fourths together, that got me a whole thing. So I had 8 whole items plus one more unit, which gives me 9 units. I'm thinking you might see now why it's crossed out, but there's one more step. To find the area, right, you take base times height. Well, that meant 3 times 3 here, so that was easy, 9 units squared. But 2 1/4 times 2 1/4, we don't know how to multiply fractions yet. We'll practice it a little bit by the end of 5th grade, but it gets to having a lot of steps. So, okay, we do know that 1/4 is the same as 25 hundredths. We know how to multiply decimals. You could say 2 and 25 hundredths times 2 and 20 hundredths, but then you would be multiplying a 3-digit number times a 3-digit number and doinking the decimal 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. You would be concentrating so much more on this and not looking at investigating the fraction 3/4. That is why I crossed this one out. You don't even need to write this information down. Your assignment, do the investigation of 3/4, and that does not need to be photographed. This does need to be photographed. This page in your jotter, where we already did 8 problems, you must also do 2 more problems. These problems you need to do on your own. Show me all the work, just like all the work was shown up here when I talked them through with you. How do you get the pieces the same size? So you should have 2 other fractions written, then add those fractions with the same sized pieces and simplify your final answer if you need to. If you do not have sticky notes, I'd prefer it on sticky notes, but if you don't have them, just draw yourself a section on your notebook paper and do the problems on your notebook paper. Your graded assignment today is a photograph of this page with these 2 problems solved all by yourself. It would be a really good idea to do the online practice before you do these 2 problems. Just saying. At any rate, hopefully I don't delete this video. Bye.